evening, all. Excuse me, allergies have got the best of me being outside all weekend. My name is Dr. Samantha Chamberlain. I am a TA within the Older Adult Division, coming to you this Memorial Day with very exciting news. First, let me highlight some upcoming courses. We have MMOA Live June 10th and 11th in Missoula. June 24th, we will be in Rochester, New York. And there are some courses in July as well. But let me pump you up for the MMOA Summit, where all 10 of us MMOA faculty will be in Lexington, Kentucky. This is going to take place August 12th and 13th, and we are ready to have a blast spreading the Old Not Week message to all of you guys for that live weekend and spreading it together with all 10 of us. It's going to be awesome. We're very excited. So jump into that course if you have the weekend available. Jumping into today's topic, I only feel it appropriate to talk about memory on Memorial Day. But first, let me say, when it comes to it, I have always felt kind of weird saying Happy Memorial Day. While I hope you all had a wonderful day, maybe got to spend some extra time with family or just got to relax, whatever it may be, I also want to offer my utmost respect to the fallen soldiers, fallen military personnel, and my condolences to their family and friends and their brothers and sisters in arms. Memorial Day is all about paying our respects to those that have fallen, and they have that from me for sure. So, memorial is something established to remind people of a person or event. It's serving to preserve remembrance or commemorative. It's relating to memory. So, let's talk about memory and brain function. Brawn for better brains. This is a huge and not or moment. We want to be strong, not just so that we can functionally do the things that we want to do from a physically able perspective, but from a cognitive perspective as well. So, turns out you can use your brawn to keep brainy. An open access study from the University of Sydney came out a few years ago, but I dove into this article this weekend, and let me tell you, it is heavy, but there's so much good information in it. But I want to keep it kind of concise because we could go so far in so many different directions with this. The name of the article is Hippocampal Plasticity Underpins Long-Term Cognitive Gains from Resistance Exercise in MCI. This was by Catherine Broadhouse et al., and that's where our information is going to be provided from today. Like I said, it's kind of a heavy article, but to really focus and use this as I encourage you to go on your own deep dive with this article if you find it interesting at all or any bit of helpful to you. The lighter version, there's a recap on sydney.edu news called Strength Training Can Help Protect the Brain from Degeneration. Still filled with great information and really good motivation to strength train throughout the lifespan. So today's primary points to help you build the bike with your older adults that may resist resistance training and grasp the importance of strength training beyond physical ability. So one, I want to refresh our memory on what the hippocampus does. I want us to think about why we care about that and how we can protect it. Yes, protect. I'm so excited. So to give you the bottom line up front, I'm going to take a line from our Essential Foundations course. The evidence is now too strong to avoid high intensity training across the lifespan, but especially with our older adults. In older adulthood, it is vital. It should be just like, we've said it before, but it should be just like brushing your teeth or any of those other daily or weekly habits that we have. It is something that has to be part of our lifestyle. So what is the hippocampus? Kicking it old school with can't say it today, Britannica source definition here. The hippocampus is located in the inner medial region of the temporal lobe. It forms part of the limbic system, which is important for regulating emotional responses. It is thought to principally involve in storing long-term memories and making those memories resistant to forgetting. It is also thought to play an important role in spatial processing and navigation. In the study that I mentioned that we're talking about today, it was also revealed that the hippocampus is implicated in far more than just memory consolidation and retrieval, forming an important hub in several networks involved in higher order executive function, impulse control, cognitive flexibility, and decision making. It is suggested that the functional disruptions within this neurocircuitry lead to maladaptive responses during cognitive and emotional processing. Okay, that was a lot, but it got you in the right mindset for this. So what happens when we start to have muscle atrophy? Not a tangent, I have a point here. We get weaker. If we want to be healthy, we strength train, and if we do it right and appropriately dose it, we get stronger again. We can build some muscle atrophy if it's correctly dosed, right? So why do we care about hippocampal atrophy? After hearing that definition and about emotional processing, the cognitive role it plays, you can easily see what happens when it starts to atrophy. We start getting mild cognitive impairment, that MCI. which then can lead to dementia, which in some people it possibly turns into Alzheimer's or AD. The usual care for this is cognitive training, maybe some medications. It's also been noted that in postmortem exams indicate substantial neuronal loss in the hippocampus. In MRI studies, it shows hippocampal atrophy precedes cognitive impairment by several years. It was also mentioned that 30 to 40% of dementia is estimated to be attributed to modifiable risk factors, such as physical and cognitive inactivity. I always tell people when they retire, I really hope you have a hobby that is active and challenging, because I've seen so many people that once they retire, it just super quick downhill. So dementia affects 47 million people worldwide. It's no surprise with that lack of movement that I was just talking about, and it's projected to rise 150 million by 2050. That is a big increase, and I hate to break it to us, but 2050 is really not that far away. Okay, a little over 25 years, right? We're almost there. So this leads to the heart of this study, my point number 3, the very exciting news, the protection aspect. Resistance training can protect the hippocampus from atrophy. This means we can protect ourselves from that cognitive decline. They found that resistance exercise can not only lead to cognitive benefits, but also protects against AD vulnerable hippocampal subfields most at risk for degeneration. The areas most at risk for degeneration are targeted by resistance training, appropriately dosed, but are targeted by it. Not just in the moment, but long term. It also leads to an increase in functional connectivity between the left hippocampus and the posterior cingulate, which isn't completely understood, but important. So what you really want to know about this, right? I told you the exciting news, but what do we do to get there? What you really want to know to be able to dose this, and what was the resistance training group doing versus the sham? So in the study, there were 4 groups. I'll tell you what they were, but we're not going to dive into each of them. Just the ones that really, like the meat and potatoes, the part that really matters to us as physiotherapists and clinicians and exercise professionals. There was resistance training plus a sham cognitive group. There was resistance training plus a cognitive training group, cognitive training plus sham resistance training, and then sham cognitive training, sham resistance training. Individuals participated in the study for 6 months of progressive resistance training, obviously the resistance training group I'm speaking to here. They were retested and re-imaged at 12 months and 18 months from baseline. So 12 months after the program ended would be that 18-month line. The 6-month training program consisted of high intensity, 80% of peak capacity, continually progressed. So they didn't stay where they started. They progressed as they got stronger, right? So this is just another reason to add to the appropriate dose narrative that we're always feeding you guys. Having those interventions that are impactful for them, knowing that estimated 1 rep max to make the biggest impact possible during the time you have with these individuals, to move them beyond just changing pain and impacting their life long term. Anyway, 80% peak capacity, 3 sets of 8 repetitions of 5 to 6 exercises each session, 4 major muscle groups. There were 90 minutes per week, so they split this up into 2 to 3 sessions per week. They'd hit major muscle groups. So here's the part you guys want to know. The exercises included chest press, leg press, seated row, standing hip abduction, knee extension, and was supervised by exercise physiologist and physiotherapist of 1 trainer per 4 to 5 participants. So they were in a group, but they were hitting those major muscle groups, and they were doing it at 80% peak capacity. In the sham resistance training group, it was PT 1.0. Stretching, seated calisthenics designed to not increase heart rate, nor impact aerobic capacity, strength, or balance. Okay. Sham, they thought they were getting exercise, and they were not getting appropriately dosed exercise, obviously. Other things to highlight here are the direct and lasting neuroprotective effect on the cognitive relevant and AD vulnerable hippocampal subfield was found 12 months after the training period. I noted this earlier, but I want you to really think about that. They exercised formally with professionals for 6 months. They tested at the end of that. They tested at 12 months, and then they tested at 18 months. So every 6 months, and at baseline as well. A year after they stopped training, it touched on some of this in the article. Like I said, you can deep dive into it. Some of them kept some of their lifestyle behavior changes, so they were still more physically active than maybe they were before they did the study, but they weren't hitting these peak capacities as much. So a year after they stopped training, they still had substantial protective thing, like the volume of the hippocampus was still not declining, even though it was previous to exercise. It is possible that resistance exercise triggers increased functional connectivity between the posterior cingulate and the hippocampus. These are key hubs of the default mode network. Using resistance exercise is not only clinically effective, but also capable of targeting a key aspect of Alzheimer's disease pathogenesis. I know a lot of people that are fearful of dementia and Alzheimer's disease and just not being able to remember things. So if you tell them that if they train heavy 2 to 3 times a week, you're going to get a lot more buy-in with them, or you're going to hit on those heartstrings of those things that are fearful to them. When people are scared, they're a lot more willing to do things. Like, it's not just about being strong or being able to move the dog food or being able to get up out of their chair. This goes beyond. This goes to knowing who their grandkids are when they show up, to knowing who their spouse is when they lay down at night. This is huge. And this is a really good way to speak to those people that maybe don't want to resistance train or don't like the effort required to resistance train at this level. 2 to 3 times a week, put in the effort, and you are going to live better. An intervention such as resistance training that effectively protects against volume loss in AD vulnerable hippocampal subfields could potentially delay transition to dementia from mild cognitive impairment. So even if they have started to notice those MCI type symptoms, or there starts to speak of forgetting things a lot, or their spouse or their family are starting to notice things that aren't quite right, they can prevent this. And leading to prevention in the sense that it gives the opportunity to live long and die fast. In other words, allowing an individual to die from something else, some other cause, while maintaining their cognitive faculties, I think is going to be very impactful for a lot of conversations that you may have with those older adults that are just there to get out of pain or there to have mobility back and move on. You can really start helping them shift from that sickness to wellness to fitness continuum. There were some challenges of the study, but one thing that was highlighted as a challenge was implementation due to the lifelong aspect of it. So just like there's lifelong medications for diabetes and for heart care and other things, that was what they highlighted as a challenge, was implementation due to it needing to be lifelong. So for me, I thought this is a huge reframe moment, right? This is not a challenge. This is an opportunity for us to reinforce the massive impact healthy lifestyle behaviors can have. Not just for lifting things, but for our brain to be able to handle the load of day-to-day life. Resistance training is too potent of a preventative medicine for it to continue to be so underutilized by the masses. Resistance training is too potent of a preventative medicine for it to continue to be so underutilized by the masses. Hope everyone had a safe Memorial Day. Hope you got something out of that. Go give resistance training. Go find those 80% peak capacities. Happy aging, everybody.